gameplay analysis 4, which is a medium level problem. So the table name is activity, which has 4 columns: player ID of type integer, device ID of type integer, event date of type date, and game split of type integer. Player ID and event date is the primary key of this table. This table shows the activity of players of some games. Each row is a record of a player who logged in and played a number of games, possibly 0, before logging out on some day using some device. Write a solution to report the fraction of players that logged in again on the day after the day they first logged in. Okay, so we need to find a fraction of players that logged in again on the second day. That is when they logged in for the first time. Rounded to 2 decimal places. In other words, we need to count the number of players that logged in for at least 2 consecutive days starting from their first login date. This is the important point here. Then divide that number by the total number of players. Okay. So here we have the activity table. Player ID 1, device ID 2, event date 2016-3-1, game split 5. On this date, player ID 1 has logged in for the first time, and 2016-3-2, game split 6. So player ID 1 has logged in consecutively for 2 days in a row. Therefore, we have one player who has fulfilled this criteria for at least 2 consecutive days starting from their first login. Now we have player ID 2 who has logged in only once. Then we have player ID 3 who has logged in on 2016-3-2 and 2018-8-7-3. That is 2 years later. So we have only one player out of total 3 players. That is why the fraction is 1 by 3, that is equal to 0.33. Okay, so what we can do here, first of all, we can find the number of player from the table along with the first time they have logged in. So we can use the min function by selecting the player ID comma min, that is the first time they have logged in, event date, as we will name this column as first login from activity group by player ID. Okay, so we will wrap this in a CTE. We will use this query later in a CTE with CTE as. Okay, so we have player ID and the first login date where they have logged in for the first time. Now what we need to do is simply count the player IDs who have logged in on the next consecutive day with the condition that they have logged in for the first time. Okay, and when they have logged in again, that is the day after they have first logged in. So we can select the data later. First of all, we need to join the tables. That is, we will join the CTE table along with the activity table which we are going to select the data from. Select from activity as a join CTE on a dot. We will join both the tables on the player ID. A dot player ID is equal to CTE dot player ID. And one more condition, that the date difference between the two dates must be equal to 1. That is, the for player ID 1, first login is this and the second login is this. So the difference between these two dates is 1 only. Okay, so what we can do here, we can write a dative function which will the first login, we are getting the first login date from the CTE table, and the later date, that is the second consecutive day, from the activity table. So in the dative function, we will subtract the minimum date from the later date. So later date coming from the activity table. So we will select a dot event date comma first login, which is coming from the CTE table. First login date diff a dot event comma first login is equals to 1. That is the difference between these two dates must be equal to 1. Okay. Now we can simply select the player ID whose all the player IDs where the date diff between the two dates must be equal to 1. Okay. Player ID from a dot player ID. So let's see what we are getting now. Okay, so we have only one player ID 1 who has logged in for 2 days in 2 days in a row. That is first login this and second login is this. Now we will need to simply count the number of players who have logged in for the first time and on the next day also, and we will simply divide it by the total number of players. So what we can do here, we can count the number of players, count the number of players which we are getting in our result, and simply divide it by the we can simply divide it by the total number of distinct players from the activity table. So what we can do here, we can select distinct player IDs from the activity table and count the number of players. Okay, so select count distinct player ID from activity, and we will simply name this column as fraction. Okay, and one more thing that do we need to round it to 2 decimal places? Yes, we need to round it till 2 decimal places. So we will simply write a round function here which will round it till 2 decimal places. Now let us see what we are getting now here. Okay, so the solution is accepted. Let's submit it. Okay, our solution is correct.